Hello guys, it's Tom here from WBTrading. Welcome along to the third in our series of videos to look through and explore how to use the TradingView platform. If you haven't seen either of the first two videos, we covered just basic intro to using TradingView, loading up charts, setting them up with some features, and we also looked through using indicators, templates, and setting some alerts. So I'll put a link in the description for either of those videos you can go back and watch after this one. On today's video, we'll be exploring using the drawing tools just to help you find out how to annotate your charts a bit better and also look for any chart patterns that you need to find. As always, if you'd like these videos and you want to see anything else covered, please just leave a comment below and we'll pick it up in a future video. With that being said, we'll get started and jump into TradingView now. We're here on the main screen for TradingView and we're just going to look down the left hand side here to find out all the drawing tools that we can use while we're in the program. The first area I want to start up is right at the very top here, and this is just again a personal preference thing. Do people prefer using a cross, dot, arrow, or we can use an eraser function, which I'll come on to in a little bit. This is just again personal preference. Is it easy to see something like this, or would you prefer a cross or just a standard arrow that you see? So total choice, doesn't make any difference in terms of using the platform. I'm going to keep it as the cross going forward. The next section we're going to look at are what I like to call just the simple drawing tools. And most of these are just straight lines. So here at the top, just below the section we're in, you can see if I expand this out, we have trend line tools. Now, a few of these will probably be familiar to most of you. Some of them may have names that you're not sure of. So we'll go through each one just in a little bit of detail. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this video discussing the application for some of these, especially when we get into the more detailed stuff. But, most of you are aware of drawing a trend line, drawing a horizontal line, vertical line, etc. And potentially some things like parallel channels, and if we need flat tops and bottoms. So just to show you a few examples, trend line wise, very straightforward, just click, drag, and click. And you can see we can adjust this around wherever we need it to go. Handy thing, if we remember from the indicators video, to get rid of anything quite quickly, just a middle mouse click, delete it off the chart, and basically it just helps us take care and clean up anything that we're doing. So just to explore a couple of these, if we're using something like a parallel channel, as an example, if we want to look for, say, certain ranges in the market, just mark them out like this. If I click once here, drag it along to the width of my channel, and then I can move it up and down to basically denote the whole range. So quite a handy tool to have, and we can drag around the screen, move it if we need to. We can drag around the parallel channels if we need to, just to adjust it to our liking. And of course, as I said, if we don't need it anymore, just a middle mouse click and it'll disappear. Another handy tip with these simple drawing tools is how we can change the visual appearance. So if, for example, I'm just going to select a trend line, we'll draw it through, and you can see now we've got a trend line in red. Now the box up here appears whenever you draw something in TradingView. You can change a few things. Most of it's fairly self-explanatory. We can change the color to whatever we would like. We can change the thickness of the line if it's easier to stand out, and we can change it to either a dashed line or a dotted line. There are a few more things as we went through in the last video. We can add an alert on this particular line if it's at a certain price or when the market crosses over. And there's a few more things you can do in terms of setting up a variety of parameters on it. So in general, we can use this for a lot of features as we're going to go through, but it's worth noting if you want a particular style of line, want to differentiate, say, stop loss placement from profit target, use dashed lines or solid lines, it's quite handy to have that feature there. Now with any of these drawing tools, one thing that's quite useful, say if you want to have multiple lines everywhere and you don't want to have to keep clicking up, we can just copy and paste as you would using the standard hotkeys that you would use on another program. So for example on Windows, Control C to copy and Control V to paste it, and you'll get the same line. So quite a useful feature to have. Now, if we delete one of these and just focus on this one, if we go into this advanced menu, a couple of things that we can do that I do find quite useful. Obviously you can change all the things we saw in that sub menu up here, but for example if you want to extend it to see where it was in the past, extend through the left, or if you want to draw it on from that point going forwards, extend to the right. So maybe if you've got a trend, you want to see where it's going to go, and you haven't drawn the line enough, we can use these features here. A few of the things down here that I would say are more complicated, more bespoke for certain strategies. You know, we can look at how long it's existed if we want to measure a period of time, for example. There is a measuring tool that we'll get onto in a little bit that I think is a bit better for that. We can look at the number of bars it's covered, the price it's covered, if potentially, you know, we're going quite a long trend. So there's a few stats in here that's just going to give you that extra information without you having to work it out yourself, which I find is really useful. One final thing that I wanted to go through before I move on to the more detailed aspects of the drawing tabs is how we can lock on our drawings to particular candles. So if I just open up here and we'll pull out horizontal line, as you can see, I'm just going to place it down and we can drag this freely around. It's not locking onto anything, so we can mark it wherever we want to go. And the same would be true for any drawing tabs. Now, let's say potentially we want to lock it on to a certain candle, maybe the high of a candle, the open, etc. What we can do is we can go down here to this button here, and the two selections we have are weak and strong magnet. Now firstly, I'm going to show you weak magnet. Essentially what that means is we can drag it around a little bit, but if we're very close to a candle high, we basically get the line clipped on. And you can see here, if I drag it down, it's going to clip onto the candle that I'm lining up with vertically. So here we clip onto the high, here we clip onto the open. So hopefully that's quite clear in terms of how we use the weak magnet function. The difference if we got a strong magnet is it allows you basically to just clip on straight away. So you can see there I've lined up to that candle at the bottom and it's automatically moved it to the high of that. If I go all the way up here, so it basically won't move away from the open, low, high and close. So a little bit more detail. It can be quite helpful if you're wanting to basically clip trends between extremes of candles or even horizontal lines. It's important to just remember that function's there instead of having to manually draw it out. With the basics of drawing lines on our charts covered, we're going to move on to some more advanced features, particularly how we can draw Fibonacci levels on our charts. So in the section below the one we've just been using, you can see here if we expand it out, we've got a variety of options. Now this is probably looking quite complex to any of you that haven't used TradingView extensively. In terms of what we have here, I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to focus on using fib retracement levels and basically plot those out and show you the easiest way to use them. These are levels that we use fairly extensively in the strategies at WBTrading. I know quite a few traders that use other features here, but as I said, I'm just going to focus on the fib retracement for the examples here. Now, before we draw them on, I'm actually going to go down, I'm going to click the magnetism button. It really helps in terms of drawing the fib levels out because I want them from the extremes of certain candles. I'm not going to be going through how we set up the trades using the strategies at WBTrading. I'm just going to be giving you an example here of how to draw out those fib retracement levels. So I'm going to click magnet mode on. I'm just going to use weak magnet for this one and just close that down. I'm going to start down here at the very lowest point we've got on the chart at the moment. And as you can see, if I move this around, we get this colored pattern. And I'm just going to take it up to the highest point here just so we can visually see what's going on the easiest. Now, for anybody that's not familiar with how fib levels work, this is probably looking all quite complicated. But in general, we're just looking through different percentages between the extremes that we've drawn. This being one extreme and this being the other. And you can see here we have quite a lot of numbers involved, and if we zoom out, we're going further down to see extension levels. Now, in order to change some elements of the fib levels that we've got on the screen, what we need to do is just double click where we've drawn the fib. And you can see here that this box appears. Again, if you're not familiar with how fib retracement or extension levels work, this looks probably quite daunting. But essentially this gives us the opportunity to turn on or off a variety of extension or retracement percentages. So if we only want to see, for example, the 50% retracement, we can turn all the rest off inside the box. And you can see here now that we just have the 1, the 50 and the 0 here. So just makes it a little clearer if we're looking for specific levels. And we can do the same down here, as you can see, with the extensions. It also gives the opportunity to change the colors in here if we want different colors for our extension or retracement levels. And as we saw with the drawings, we can go in and extend these lines to the left or to the right if we want to see what's happening in the past or in the future for these Fibonacci levels. So all in all, quite handy. I like the visual style on TradingView that allows you to see these levels quite clearly. And particularly if we're using the magnetism tool, it's really easy to deploy these fib levels. The same is true if we go into any of these settings down here, selecting any option here, going through the same process, fairly easy to draw what could be quite complex chart patterns on. So quite handy to use this section. As I said, I don't use all of it, but certainly for the ones that I do use, particularly the fib retracement and a little bit of the fib extension, it works really well with these settings. The next section we have are just more annotation tools, really. Fairly self-explanatory. I won't spend a huge amount of time in this section. You can see here we've got the basic stuff if we want to highlight a section, if we want to draw a rectangle or a different shape around, or mark on a path. Again, same tools as we used for the other sections. We can just click here, drag these out, just place them down, annotate anything we need up here, change the fill color, change the lines as we've been through, change the thickness. And of course, same things if we need to clip, use the magnet tool, delete, just middle mouse button, copy and paste, all the same. So for whatever reason, if you need these tools, I find them sometimes useful just to mark on certain areas of the market that I might come back to have a look at. But for all intents and purposes, they're quite simple, quite limited in terms of their use. The section below this, pretty much more of the same. We can use this to just mark on certain areas, leave some notes for ourselves. I don't really use this section a huge amount. One thing that's quite good, if we want to put some notes on potential prices or levels, I usually use the price note here, just drag it out, click here. Always go for the magnetism option when we're doing something like this. I find it easier. So click on here and just say, up there at that price, something I want to come back to and have a look at. We can go through there and put a note on or a label. Again, plenty of annotation tools. Quite handy when I'm going through with traders to explain how certain strategies work, but in terms of actually applying the strategies and going through charts, I don't find a huge amount of use for this section. The next section, we're really looking to get into the detailed stuff here and the very specific tools. So you can see if I open this out, I'm guessing even people that have been trading a while, some of this might be unfamiliar. This is really specific chart patterns that we're looking at. Some of you may have heard of something like a head and shoulders pattern and maybe come across the term for Elliott waves, but this is beyond the scope of this video to go through setting all these up. And as I said, they're really linked to very specific strategies looking at very specific chart patterns. But it helps having these functions here if you do use these as part of your trading strategy. Saves you a lot of time certainly manually drawing them out. So it's good to have them there as always. The following section is where I think TradingView is probably at its most useful. And this is just measuring out trade setups. So if we go into this section down here, you can see if we open this up, we get a variety of options to use. It's basically prediction or measurement tools. Some of these are a little detailed, but some of them are very straightforward and very, very easy and useful. So if we go into, say, long position, all it's going to let us do is measure out the results based on where a stop loss and profit would be for a potential trade. So as always, just going to drop the magnet tool on and we're going to just use, say, this candle down here and imagine we're setting up a long trade. So as you can see, it gives us this box and at the moment it's saying here, crucial information, our risk to reward ratio is 1. So I'm just going to say, let's set our stop loss here, just about the low of that candle there. And let's set our profit, imagine we were going to take the trade and our profit target was going to be just above the high here. So clip onto that. And now you can see that this would tell us automatically what our risk to reward ratio would be, where our stop would be, where our profit would be. And we can use this if we're testing out any particular strategies, combine it with some of the drawing tools and the indicators that we've looked through previously. And it's a really helpful tool just to be able to measure out that risk to reward, which is a really, really important thing that we need to understand within our trading results. And TradingView does this excellently, I think, better than any other program I've seen. You can see along the side here, similar thing, if we're using a short position, it's just the other direction. On my main account, these are actually favorited. So if we click here, we can access them at the top. It just makes it a lot simpler to draw them out instead of having to go through the menus. And for any favorited items, in the other sections, it will be the same. Maybe want to favorite the Fibonacci retracement, and it appears up here. Just a useful tip to stop us having to go through those menus. But certainly using the long and short position tools, really useful, a huge time saver using TradingView like that. Another couple of useful features within this tab. Firstly, the forecast tool. So this just gives you an opportunity to see if something's occurred, basically in very simple terms. So for example, if we go to this this recent high here, let's say we didn't have this data and this was the very latest, we can place a forecast on here to say, does it return to this level, for example, within a certain amount of time? This is a week and a bit. Let's say we did it for 2 weeks. You can see here that we can move this anywhere we need to, really. And if we place it on this area here, has it returned at this level? Well, it clearly has at this point, so we'd mark it as a success. And if we want to do another one, just drag that down. Easiest thing to do. If we're marking this recent low here, has it returned at this level so far? Well, it hasn't yet. So it's one thing that we can mark on and say we haven't had a success yet. So it's an important tool to use, particularly if you're planning out future trades. Just marking things on the chart so you understand where your recent highs, where your recent lows, or if you're using it for any type of trend. So if I just get rid of that. Another thing in here, date and price ranges, obviously very self-explanatory, good to use with the magnet function. I'll just do the price range so we can see. Just click the magnet here. So we start the price range out at the bottom here. We can see how high this has gone up here and the percentage increase as well, or decrease. Just useful in terms of knowing where those potential ranges are as well. The final couple of things for this video, this tab here, I'm just going to gloss over really, just adding icons to the charts. Again, purely personal preference if you wanted to put these on your chart, not things I ever use. But here we have the measurement tab. So I know we've covered a few things in terms of marking out certain ranges and distances. This is just a quick way to understand on the chart if we want to look for a certain price range or a period of time. Just click here, drag it, and we can move it around. Obviously, it'll change color depending on if it's long or short, but quite a simple tool if we want to just check something very quickly. And it'll just be deleted if we click elsewhere on the chart. Final things, as we've gone through, the magnetism tool down here. If we want to delete everything, I know we covered this in the indicators episode, but you can remove drawings, indicators, or everything all in one go. And if we want to hide something, the options are here as well. So clear the chart up, make all of our lines reappear. There's an easy way to do that using this function here. That's everything we're going to cover in TradingView for this video. Appreciate your time. Hopefully that was quite useful and you found a few features that will certainly help in terms of your trading. Appreciate that was quite a longer video than last time and there was a lot of information in there, but I tried to cover everything in terms of annotating our charts with the most useful functions. As always, please leave us a comment if there's anything else you would like to see, or if there's any other platforms you'd like us to cover in the future. And hopefully I'll see you back for the next video on this.